Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we do have yet another new freaking ALEO ASIC, this one coming again from IceRiver. We're going to talk about the AE3, we're going to talk about what we know, which we do have the specs, we'll look at approximate pricing and shipping windows. We're going to compare it to the competition to see how it stacks up, as well as talk about the overall status of ALEO ASIC mining as a whole, so we can see if this thing could be worth getting. Okay, if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. So this guy has not officially been announced by IceRiver, but it was leaked by some of the retailers a few days ago. More of the retailers are starting to list it, so it's giving me more confidence in those specs. So we're gonna base it off of those specs. Let's talk about it. It's currently listed as 600 mega hash at about 1,000 watts. Okay, so just eyeballing the specs, what does it sound like? Basically two of the AE1 lights, right? AE1 lights, 300 mega hash, 500 watts, literally exactly just half. Okay. Other key standouts, just eyeballing it, is the form factor, right? This being a 1,000 watt unit, which is something new coming from IceRiver. So a couple of questions there. They're using a picture of the AE1 light as a placeholder, and it's not just Miner Bros, it's all the other vendors. They're also doing the same thing. My question, is it going to be the same exact form factor, or is it a whole new container, whole new model? We don't know. We're going to have to wait for IceRiver to make that official announcement. The reason I'm kind of concerned there or interested there is because there is slight concern, right? For any guys who do have any of those light models, those guys do already run kind of toasty. And the fact that we're going to double the amount of heat it's going to generate, we're going to double the PSU, which is going to generate even more heat. There is slight concern if it is those same only two little fans on there. Okay, again, they do run a little bit toasty. Not to the point where it affects performance or anything, but 1,000 watts is very different from 500 watts. Okay, so that would be one point I would like to make. That'd be a little bit interesting to see how it performs, how it acts, if it is the same box, right? Realistically, my guess there to be at least some changes, maybe 2 additional fans. We're going to have to wait and see on that. But just something to consider. Looking at prices, Miner Bros, we do typically know is like 10 to 20% higher than the competition. They do have it listed at $3,900 for a June batch. Okay. For reference, they have the AE1 Lite, their June batch, which is a price reduction at $2,300. Okay. And just for reference sake, NHash, who does tend to be close to the MSRP or just cheaper in general, sometimes even below MSRP, they have the AE1 Lite June batch at $1,899. Okay. So ballparking, most likely, at least the NHash price, likely to be around $34.99. MSRP likely to be somewhere at that point. Okay, so just for reference. So now looking at profitability, and this is where a lot of people unfortunately are going to get fixated on. It's currently generating about $20 in income. You're going to subtract your $240 for electric at a 10-cent kilowatt hour. Overall profit being about $17 a day at ALEO's current price. Okay. Key things to factor in here, though. Okay, something we've been harping on with every ALEO ASIC release. That profit is likely, or at least profit is likely to go down, but the yield is definitely going to go down, which is going to affect the profit. Okay, and it's gone down pretty significantly. Okay, a lot of the initial effects have been felt. We did have the release of the gold shell units, then the AE0, and then ultimately the AE1 Lite. Okay, so now it's kind of normalized, but expected to continue to go up because again we had a price reduction on the A1 Lite, and then now the density of this guy. Okay, so can factor that in. To what extent, it's hard to say. The network has matured a little bit, so it does take quite a bit for us to have a very significant impact, although it's possible, right? We're currently hovering anywhere from about 1.58 to about 1.8 teraproof a second. If we kind of go by the logic, right, initially after the A0s kind of like leveled out, it got up to about 1 teraproof a second. Now that the A1 lights have leveled out, we're about 1.6 to 1.8. If we continue that trend, we can expect to see about 2.5 teraproofs a second. Okay, can it be higher than that? Sure. Can it be significantly higher than that? Also sure. Okay, that's what you got to factor in here. It would not be very surprising to see the hash rate double again from here, which would do what? It would have your yields, okay? So if that were to happen, this would get cut in half. Okay, and that would be just from the releases of these guys. Definitely a possibility. It's not something I would rule out because of what's happened in the past. The bigger threat is when the big boy units come out. That to me is the overall biggest concern, because then the sky's the limit with how high that's going to go. Okay, it's going to probably go up more significantly than just double, triple, quadruple, etc. And your yield is going to go by that magnitude. It's not something as simple as, I don't know where the hell it started, where people have been saying in the comments, oh, it's just going to go cut in half and that's how I'm calculating my ROI. I don't know where that 50% thing is coming from, but that's not how this shit works. It's based off of the hash rate, how high the hash rate is going to go, which with these immature networks, sky's kind of the limit. Okay? Don't think that, oh, it has to ROI in a certain amount of time. Oh, there's no way it can go from $40 down to $10. There's no way. That's such a drastic difference. It happens like that. Ask any of the guys who bought these piece of shit gold shell boxes. They were $20, $30, $40 at one point. Now they're 20, 30, 40 cents. Okay, it can definitely happen, especially if you're buying inefficient junk. Okay, this is why we say efficiency is longevity. You're buying things that are 5 times less efficient than competition, you're gonna get wrecked. Okay, we're already seeing it happen. Chances are by the time this AE3 and this price reduction on AE1 Lite units get plugged in, these guys will probably be unprofitable. Crazy, right? But it can definitely happen. So just factor those things in, guys. Take the risk. Again, it's hard to justify, because it's not, again, with these types of things, you can't just calculate the ROI. You cannot do that. It's really hard to calculate what's going to happen with the hash rate here. Specifically because of the big boy units. We know they're going to come out. For example, in comparing it to the AE0, it's 35 of the AE0s, 7 AE1 Lites, or 3.5 of these AE3s for just one of those units. If it's a batch of 2,000 units, do the math. It's going to have a massive effect on the overall hash rate. The question is, how long till that happens? We don't know, right? Could be a few days till we get the Bitmain announcement. Or IceRiver can launch their own AE5 or whatever the hell they want to call it as soon as next batch, right? So this AE1 Lite, it's going to be the June batch is that price reduction. Chances are the AE3 may be also in that batch from June 15th to June 30th. And the way it's accelerating, I wouldn't be surprised to see the big boy unit come the following batch, the July 15th to July 30th batch, especially if ALEO's price action continues sideways or goes down. Okay, that's kind of been the trend in case you haven't noticed, right? At this point, with this new unit, it's now only a third of the big boy unit. It's not that far away. Okay, and that's essentially what you are betting on. You are betting on how much time you have between the release of this guy and the newer guy. Okay, just make sure you fully understand that although it's making this much a day currently, it's not going to by the time these guys get plugged in. Okay, and regardless of the risk, people still buy these things, buy the pallet loads. Even with all the talk of the gold shells and how inefficient they were and how they're not recommended, people still bought the hell out of those things. Okay, so please don't be those guys that get wrecked with these riskier units. Again, to me, the only one that kind of makes sense is potentially like the AE0, for example, and it's only because lower price to entry and the fact that it's only 100 watts, right? Because it's only 100 watts, it's something you can mine all the way through regardless of what happens. ALEO goes down to 12 cents, 10 cents. Who cares? Yeah, it's only 100 watts. You can mine all the way through in hopes of ALEO eventually at some point appreciating in price. Will it happen? Won't it happen? I would suspect it would happen, right? ALEO does have potential. It's ranked number 568, $73 million market cap. Does have potential to go up. Is it going to go back up to $5-6? Probably not. It's going to go back up to $1, maybe $2. Definitely a possibility. Okay, so that's how I would kind of factor those things in. But again, looking at overall price, we have price, specs, profitability, all that such. Factoring all those things in, would I consider getting this AE3? In my opinion, me personally, no. It's too likely that that big boy unit is literally around the corner. Okay, again, we don't know. Could be next month, could be 6 months down the line. that's the bet you're taking. For me, those odds are not very good. It's extremely likely that it's going to be sooner than later. Okay, at this point, if you felt confident that you can get the AE3, like, oh man, I definitely feel like the big boy unit's not going to come out for another 6 months, then sure. The history isn't telling us that. History is telling us that it's going to be definitely sooner than later, as soon as a month or two. Who knows though, right? For me, this bet doesn't make sense, right? Especially at $3,500. Maybe at like $2,000, potentially. I guess you could take the bet. But at this point, that's a hefty sum of money where you can just outright buy the coin. Okay? Looking at ALEO's current price, again, it's at 18 cents. Can it go lower? Absolutely. Alts are currently tanking right now. Just last month, a few weeks ago, is down to 11, 12 cents. Can it go down to that point? Sure. Can it go lower than that point? Also sure. Right? Can it also go higher though? Absolutely. That's the risk you have to be willing to take. For me though, looking at it, it just doesn't make sense. It just makes more sense to potentially either buy the coin, buy a small amount of this coin, buy something else. The other part that just makes it difficult is just, again, ALEO's price action. ALEO being where it's at. Because again, even just ballparking it, if we were to buy $3,500 with the ALEO, 19,527. Right? If we were to take that amount and we would divide it by the yield you'd be making currently, and again, this is what you'd be making right now. By the time you get this thing, it could be half of this. It could be down to 50. But let's say worst case scenario or best case scenario. Okay, let's take our 19,500 that we could just buy ALEO outright right now and divide it by the 100 that would be yielding a day. Okay, obviously it's going to be less than that. Again, this is your best case scenario. Did that wrong. 19,000 divided by 105. About 185 days. It's more likely that this is going to go down to at least half, right? Doubling, going up to 360. By the time that big boy unit comes out, let's say you get 2 months, it's probably going to go down to a fraction of that. Not just half, maybe a quarter of that. You could probably go down to like 20, 25 ALEO a day, further extending that. Again, your best case scenario, which is not a realistic scenario, is 6 months. Most likely it's going to be well beyond that. If we go by the traditional mining cycle, where are we going to peak at? Somewhere in the next 4 to 6 months. Okay, so already just judging off of those things, not making a whole lot of sense, right? Again, if it's something that's under $1,000, you could take a risk buying some of that. Maybe ALEO dips further, you could buy a little bit more of that. That to me would be a much better option. And even at this point, you've already lost a couple of months. Again, if you were to take the risk with the zeros or any of these early ASICs, it's getting in on those first batches and just hoping you have an extended period of time without big boy ASICs. Okay, so to me, this late in the game, the fact that the big boy ASICs are probably around the corner, because again, this is only a third of the big boy unit, it's extremely risky, and it's kind of a lopsided bet that to me just doesn't make sense at this point. At this point, honestly, even if you're bullish on ALEO, you definitely want to get one. Wait for the big boy. Okay, will it happen? Won't it happen? This is the thing. It may not happen. We may not get one throughout this damn bull market. We have no idea. But to me, looking at history, looking at likelihoods, it seems extremely, extremely likely that either it'll be released or at the bare minimum announced sometime between now and the next 2 months. Potentially as soon as the coming month, right? I wouldn't be surprised to see that by the time these things are actually in people's hands, right? So think the first week of July for us to get an announcement on it and for it to be a July 15th to July 30th batch. Would not surprise me one bit, especially if we get that Bitmain announcement prior to that. Okay, so to me, at least at this point, it's extremely risky. Again, any of these immature network plays are extremely risky, especially the more you wait it, especially with these mid-tier units. Okay, it's one thing if it was a year ago and we had more time in the bear market, but if things kind of play out the way we're hoping, not looking good, right? Especially timeline wise, it's just not a lot of time for just ASIC miners in general. That's why a lot of the focus typically hasn't been on a lot of the ASIC miners, especially the bigger ones, right? Some of these smaller ones, the little home miners, kind of a different story because you could power them regardless of the situation. But with any of these like 3,000, 3,500 waters, It needs to be something that I have confidence in beyond this potential cycle top. If it happens, right? A lot of the going theory is that we may have an extended cycle, and that may play more in your favor, but I try to look at things worst case scenario, and I'm going to look at it in the scenario that things will play out like they have in the past, meaning us peaking sometime in Q3, Q4, sometime between August to November, for example. Okay, so again, everybody's going to have their strategy, but just looking at it, like, yes, it's going to look appealing, look at the profitability, understand the risk factor, understand that it's a massive, massive risk factor, because although it's making 20 bucks a day now, by the time that big boy unit, especially if it does come in the next month or two, and ALEO's price action is still struggling, this guy's going to be making a fraction of what it was, right? It's not going to be making 20 bucks. Could be down to 10 bucks, can be down to 5 bucks, can be down to a couple of bucks. Factor those things in, guys, right? So in reality, not necessarily a nothing burger, but it's just two of the AE1 lights. We're going to have to wait to see the official price point. That's where things can get tricky. Like, let's say they come in aggressive. They got word of the Bitmain unit. They're going to be like, you know what? Let's rip off the Band-Aid. Let's make this AE3 this price. It's not going to happen, right? This guy's the price reduction. Then maybe, but as is right now, if we're factoring in that it's probably going to be $3,500, maybe $29.99, I just wouldn't personally have a lot of interest in it, right? But let me know in the comments, guys. What do you guys think? Do you guys kind of agree? Are you guys over it? Are you guys over ALEO? I know this price action has been horrible. Or are you guys kind of waiting for the big boy unit? That, to me, could potentially make more sense if the price is aggressive and it comes in time, just because at that point, we have a lessened risk of the bigger, better miner. Especially once Bitmain does announce their unit. Then we have something to compare to, because if it comes out, it gets announced, similar efficiency to whatever IceRiver releases, then kind of makes you a little bit more bullish. But like, even if IceRiver were to announce their big boy unit, you still have the threat of potentially Ice or Bitmain being extremely more efficient, right? You kind of have to play those mechanics. You have to look at those worst case scenarios and be more forward thinking. Look at what's going to happen in the future, not just right now. Because, like, for example, right now, we know this thing ain't going to make 20 bucks a day by the time you get it, if ALEO's still at 18 cents. If ALEO rips and it's at 30, 40, 50 cents, different story. But as is right now, which is what we got to go by, not looking too great, right? But let me know in the comments, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I am out.